Okay, hello, my name is Natalie, and today I'm gonna explain and analyzing the book Why Fragility and Why Is It Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo, and it was published in 2018. Okay, first we're gonna give a little introduction. This book focuses on how white people often respond with defenses when the topic of racism is introduced. DiAngelo argues that these defensive reactions are not random or individual, but are social learned behaviors that help maintain racism in society. For this, my thesis is white fragility explains how white defensives protects comfort and helps maintaining systematic racism, and when analyzed through intersectionality and socio-historical contexts such as environmental racism, we can clearly see how these reactions have real-world consequences. Okay, so we can give a bit of a summary of the book. The main concept of the book is white fragility, which DiAngelo defines as the emotional and behavioral reactions white people have when their racial worldview is challenged. These reactions can include anger, guilt, arguing, silence, denial, or leaving the conversation. According to DiAngelo, these behaviors work to restore white comfort rather than address the racism. One of the most important quotes from the book states, "White fragility is a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves." DiAngelo explains that white people are socially insulted from race-based stress because they grow up in a society that centers witnesses as normal and safe. As a result, many white people develop very little tolerance for conversations about racism. The book is written using real examples from DiAngelo's work as a diversity and anti-racism trainer. She combines personal experiences, classroom discussions, and workplace training to show how white fragility appears in everyday life. The purpose of the book is not shame, but to help white people recognize these patterns and begin taking responsibility for dismantling racism. Okay. Now, social identity and intersectionality crux. The main social identity examined in this book is race, especially white racial identity. DiAngelo focuses on how witnesses operate as a position of power that often goes unnamed and unexplained. To better understand the book, we use the intersectionality framework developed by Kimberly Crenshaw. Intersectionality explains that people experience the world through multiple identities at the same time, such as race, gender, and class. These identities overlap and shape how much privilege or oppression someone experiences. When we apply intersectionality to white fragility, we see that defensive does not look the same for all white people, and the harm of racism is not experienced equally by all people of color. For example, a wealthy white person and a poor white person both experience white privilege, but class may change how that privilege appears. At the same time, a low-income person of color experiences racism and class oppression together. So this lens, white fragility becomes more than an individual reaction. It becomes a structural response that protects power across institutions, including education, government, housing, and the environment. Other class theories help strengthen DiAngelo's argument as well. Peggy mentioned concept of white privilege show how white people receive unearned advantages simply because of race. Eduardo Bonilla Silva's theory of color-blind racism explains how people deny racism by saying things like "I don't see color," which actually helps racism to continue. Together, these theories show that white privilege Fragility is just not about feelings, it is part of a larger racial system. Socio-historical context. The book was published in 2018, during a time of intense racial and political division in the United States. This was during the Trump presidency, after the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, and during widespread debates about racism, policing, and systematic inequality. Many white Americans were being asked to confront racism more directly than ever before. At the same time as pretending in Dr. Harkin's lecture on race and racism, white supremacy is also visible in the environment through a concept called environmental racism. Environmental racism is defined as disproportionate impact of environmental hazards of people of color. Like Professor explained that many popular and dangerous areas are known as sacrifice zones, meaning areas that are considered disposables. These areas are usually inhabited by BIPOC communities. Climate justice activists explain this by saying, you can have climate change without sacrificing zones, and you can have sacrifice zones without disposable people, and you can have disposable people without racism. A real-life example of this is the Fleet water crisis, where a predominantly black community was exposed to toxically contaminated water due to a government neglect. This was not an accident, it was a result of systematic racism and disregard for marginalized lives. This connects directly to white fragility because when people respond to racism with denial or defenses, they avoid accountability. When accountability is avoided, systems like environmental racism are allowed to continue. Personally, reading White Fragility helped me to understand why conversations about racism often become more uncomfortable. I recognize many of the defensive behaviors D'Angelo describes in everyday life, especially in the moments where people feel accused rather than reflective. But overall, I believe D'Angelo achieved her goal of helping readers recognize how their reaction may be contributing to racism. In conclusion, White Fragility explains how white defenses work to protect, comfort, and maintain systematic racism. When analyzed through intersectionality and supported by social historical examples such as environmental racism and the Fleet water crisis, when we can clearly see that these reactions have serious real-world consequences. D'Angelo's work challenges readers to move beyond guilt and into responsibility. Only by facing discomfort can real social change begin. Thank you for listening. Here are my APA citations too. Thank you.